You know, one of the major side disadvantages of a war status and a war mentality is what Randolph Bourne described as war is the health of the state, which means when there's a war mentality, whether it's a domestic war against this unreasonable, outrageous war against drugs here in this country, or the war, even the war against poverty, the war against the illiteracy, the war, who knows what, and of course the war overseas and the war against terrorism, that they set the stage in the psychology. They want you to give up your freedoms. That's what they want. But my suggestion, which is a very strong suggestion, is that there is never a reason that we have to sacrifice liberty for our safety. I have maintained that most of our safety comes by what we do for ourselves or what our businesses do. I think 9/11 was compounded not only because we had a flawed foreign policy, but we had a flawed policy dealing with our airlines prior to 9/11. Of course, it hasn't gotten any better. In a free society dedicated to property rights, the owner of the property is responsible for taking care of the property and any individuals that participate. A much more respectful notion and understanding about the Second Amendment could have gone a long way to having prevented 9/11. But our government was in charge, and they prohibited the airlines from having guns on the airplane, and they also had a rule: never resist if a terrorist comes on the airplane if there are hijackers. Private property ownership is what makes people motivated and wiser in their decisions on protecting their property. So this is an attitude. Unfortunately, after 9/11, what did we do? We just further made it worse by turning this over to a bigger and more bureaucratic management of this. And now, you know, has anybody here ever had something that was less than dangerous taken from them at the airport? I mean, I see it all the time, and nobody feels safer. And some of the TSA agents actually are embarrassed by what they have to do. I get very annoyed at the airports, but then I have to remind myself, I can't blame them. I should be blaming the Congress, the government that has created these problems. But under these conditions that we're concerned about with war, the biggest attack comes on our civil liberties. And I remember clearly the oath of office that I've taken on numerous times, whether it's to go in office or when I went into the military. I was called up during the Cuban crisis. And the oath of office is very clear, and all you who have been in the military know about this. And we swear to uphold the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. The percentage chance of this country being attacked by a foreign military force is virtually nil. The odds, the fact that now they want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars putting anti-ballistic missiles up, ironically, on the border of Russia so that the Iranians won't send a missile over to the United States. I don't know how anybody could buy into that argument. All it's doing is further provoking what is going on. But under these conditions, what happens is people come and they say that we're supposed to give up our liberties. And just look at what's happened since the war has started and since we've had this war on terrorism that is in many ways fictitious. It's a serious problem. It's a very serious problem, but to get hysterical about it and not understand what occurs will not happen. So why is it that we have now had attack on our privacy, that we've invented new and secretive courts, while we've lost the privilege and the rights of habeas corpus? We need to demand and insist that we have our civil liberties protected. The Constitution was written for a precise purpose. It was written, and if you read it carefully, it wasn't there to give government power. It was there to restrain the government. That was the purpose of the Constitution. It was also there to protect our privacy, not government secrecy. The one thing that I indeed would promise if I am to be in that position is that there will be very, very few secrets in government, and we will reveal all those secrets that have been held out against us. Also, if it's important enough, and I believe it is, for us to get a sound monetary system, don't you think it would be a pretty good idea to finally insist that we have an audit of the gold that's supposed to be at Fort Knox? You know, around the world today, our image has been diminished. Believe me, we have less friends and more enemies, and unfortunately, our image is portrayed, especially in the Arab Muslim world. I'm not arguing that they're perfect people in the Arab Muslim world, but there's also explanations. But let me tell you what the image is, and it's not an accident. The image is Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo. That is the image. That is why we need to close those places down. But you know, it's nice to talk in idealistic terms. I am indeed an idealist. If you don't have an idea and you don't have a goal, believe me, we won't get anywhere. We also know that we have some real problems to deal with in the real world, and how do we get there? And it is not that difficult. That is the reason why I believe this campaign is growing, because there are answers without the use of violence and without the anticipating and waiting for runaway inflation, the destruction of the dollar, and the complete destruction of our civil liberties. All we have to do is start reversing these trends. And my answers come first that we have to change our foreign policy. It's more vulnerable than, say, attacking some welfare program here at home. But the foreign policy is where we can literally save hundreds of billions of dollars, actually cut the deficit, and put it into programs that we have here at home, where people have been told that the programs were sound, the money's been spent, but we don't have to throw anybody out in the streets if we change this policy. We can do it. Not only that, we can start offering alternatives without closing down any system, whether it's the education or medical system. What we could do is offer to the people, especially the young people, a chance to get out of the system. So I would certainly work diligently for the day that all young people, if they don't think Social Security is a good deal, I would let you take care of yourself and get out of the system. You know, along the lines of our responsibilities in government that we don't do, you know, we do too many things we're not supposed to do. We don't do the things we're supposed to do. We don't have the sound monetary system. We don't protect our civil liberties. But in one area that we have fallen down on is preserving our national sovereignty. I'm still old-fashioned. I believe in national sovereignty.